Hey everybody, I'm so sorry I can't be there today with y'all. I'm taking care of my sick kid, but I do think I will hopefully be back Thursday. So I will see you, I guess, tomorrow. But for today, luckily you got Lucy or Sami, and they're going to take you through your class for today. So you probably have already hopefully looked at this kind of change blindness with the dancing bear. So we'll come back to why you've watched that in a minute. Let's move forward, and I promise you, we'll come back to this and why you watched that video. But what I'd like for you guys to do next, if you haven't already, please get out a piece of paper and a pencil. And in a moment, all I need you to do is just write down your responses to each of the following questions. I'll go ahead and pause the video, and then once everyone has paper and pencil, go ahead and play again. All right, let's do this. So this is just between you and yourself. You don't have to share this information with anyone else, but we're gonna start with an attitude survey. So go ahead and just write down your attitudes in response to each of these questions on your piece of paper. So the first is texting and driving dangerous? Yes or no? Go ahead and write down your answer. You can put A, B, or actually write out yes, no, or put YN. It's up to you. All right, next question. Is cheating unfair to other people? Go ahead and write down your answer. All right, next one. Is it important to be informed about local politics? Go ahead and write down yes or no. Next, is drinking soda unhealthy? Yes or no. Next, is donating money and volunteering time to help the impoverished important? Yes or no? And last but not least, is smoking and vaping bad for people's health? Yes or no? All right, now that you have answered the questions to this attitude survey, we're going to complete a second survey, and it is a behavior survey. Fun! So go ahead and write down the answers to these next set of questions. It might be interesting if you parallel them with the previous. They kind of go together. So you have 1 through 6. You might put the 1 through 6 right next to them. If that sounds confusing, just do it however feels right to you. But first question to answer, I text when I am driving. Yes or no? Next question, have you ever cheated? Yes or no? Question 3, I am able to name at least one bill affecting my community that was passed in the last year by the legislators in my county or state. Yes or no? I drink soft drinks or soda. Yes or no? Within the last year, I have donated money or engaged in volunteer work to address the problems of poverty. Yes or no? And the last one, within the last year, I have smoked or vaped. Yes or no? And again, this information is just for you. Just a little psychological survey. So let's talk about why I have bothered you with these questions. Okay, so today with this video, we're going to be talking about cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance occurs when actions are inconsistent with beliefs. So we see that in the survey you just took. It asked you about your beliefs, your attitudes to 6 different questions, and then it followed by immediately then asking about your actions for the same following 6 questions. Now, if your beliefs were not consistent with your actions, you possibly felt cognitive dissonance. And so cognitive dissonance is a sense of discomfort. People don't like feeling dissonance. They don't like when their beliefs and actions don't match. We don't feel good when that happens. And so you may have noticed that if, for instance, you said, yes, soda is so bad for us, but then you're like, oh, wait, but I do drink soda. Oh, it's so bad for me. You might have felt kind of like uncomfortable and a little bad about yourself for like 2 seconds, and before you're like, wait, but soda's yummy, it's fine. And so you were feeling dissonance. But when you then thought, but soda's yummy, it's fine, I only drink one like a month or something, what you're doing there is you're then rationalizing to deal with that unpleasant feeling. You change your belief. Oh, well, you know what? Eating healthy things isn't that important. Or maybe you change your action. You know what? After this moment, the Stoics made a good point. I shouldn't be drinking soda. Never again. Or you change your action perception. With the idea of you change something like measurements. I only have one a month, or there's other ways that we can kind of like alter a question and a belief slightly to decrease the dissonance. But ultimately, that's the goal, is to decrease the dissonance so that we don't have to feel uncomfortable with the fact that our actions and beliefs don't match. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. You might be like, why, Ms. Stokes? This isn't psychology. This is an English class. The reason why we're talking about it is because the concept of cognitive dissonance, we're also going to talk about cognitive bias, is really important to understanding Slaughterhouse-Five. So this will give you some background information that you can utilize to better understand the book. All right. So with cognitive dissonance, when you're considering why your actions and beliefs don't match, there's some different things that you can think. You were wrong about what you believe. You don't hold your belief as strongly as you thought. You don't understand your belief and what it entails. You acted hypocritically. So when beliefs and actions don't match, these are sometimes the reasons why. Not always, but they can be the reasons why. And if these are the reasons why our actions and beliefs don't match, this is why we feel uncomfortable, because these are not really great things to think about ourselves. We don't like to think we're wrong. We don't like to think we're wishy-washy in our beliefs. We don't like to think that we're ignorant in something that we say we believe. And we definitely don't like thinking of ourselves as hypocrites. And so if we start thinking one of these 4 things or multiple of these things about ourselves, we feel uncomfortable. That's cognitive dissonance. And so, as I was describing before, when you think about any of these things about yourself in any of the scenarios I asked you to think about, and you become uncomfortable, instead of continuing to think these uncomfortable things about ourselves, we rationalize, as I explained before. So rationalization is a form of self-deception, which is a powerful psychological impediment to good reasoning. When we rationalize, we justify our behaviors and convince ourselves that they are self-consistent so that we don't have to face up to uncomfortable possibilities. So what is the problem with rationalization? It is kind of an impediment to good reasoning, and that can become problematic in day-to-day life and also in much bigger decisions outside of day-to-day life where good reasoning is necessary. So most self-deception is brought on by cognitive dissonance, which occurs when you can't reconcile your beliefs with the evidence in front of you. In this case, you guys were asked to imagine that you had beliefs that that were not in accordance with your own actions, and possibly you came up with rationalizations in order to ease the cognitive dissonance caused by this inconsistency. So what I'd like for you guys to do at this moment is to pause this video. You've been listening to me talk for a while. You're probably getting a little bored. So let's pause this video. And I'd like for you guys, for however long it goes for, to talk about kind of, and only if you're comfortable, because some of the stuff was personal. But hey, there's no adults in the room, so you can maybe have a more open conversation about all this, is kind of where did things not match up? And when they didn't match up, did you feel uncomfortable? And if you felt uncomfortable, did you rationalize? And if you rationalized, are you practicing self-deception and getting in the way of good reasoning? Or do you feel like this is a little unfair? So go ahead and talk about it and see what you come up with. And if anything, if the conversation doesn't go well, make sure to check in with each other, at least to see that you understand all the concepts we've just covered. So pause the video and go ahead and do that. All right, So there's another video. Depending on how much time is left, Lucy and Simi, I'll let you make a call if you want to play this little cognitive dissonance song. If you do decide to play it, please don't play the whole thing. It's very long and it gets annoying, but it is a really catchy way to see some examples of cognitive dissonance and how they might occur in everyday life. So if you want to take a moment to watch that video, it's in the slideshow. But I'm going to move on. So the question is, how do we cope? So when we're feeling cognitive dissonance and we want to rationalize, what is this coping mechanism we use? So rationalization can occur in many ways, but these are the three primary ways. So the first is that we change one or more of the attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, etc., to make the relationship between the two elements a constant one. So this means one of two things. One, you can change your attitude. Oh, I thought I believed this, but I don't believe this. Or you can change the way you behave. Oh, I do believe this, so I shouldn't behave this way. Now, with the latter, that can be actually very difficult for people because it's very difficult to change our behavioral responses. So in the example below, it says, for instance, giving up smoking. If you're addicted to smoking or vaping and you decide that the behavior doesn't match your attitude about it and you decide to change the behavior, sometimes it's not as easy as just making that decision. And so that's where we can run into some problems with that coping mechanism, even if it's the right thing to do. So next up, we acquire new information that outweighs the dissonant belief. So returning to the example of smoking or vaping, someone who may find out or possibly already know that smoking causes lung cancer will feel dissonance because they know that's not something they should do to themselves. However, they can then go and find information that provides something they would prefer to think. Research has not proved definitely that smoking causes lung cancer. So you might find that somewhere online and be like, oh, well, thank goodness, I'm fine then, I can keep smoking. And so with the internet being what it is, where you can pretty much find someone saying anything that you want somewhere on the internet, when people want to find people who agree with their dissonant beliefs, they generally can. And so acquiring new information is sometimes the way that people cope with cognitive dissonance. And so our last form of rationalization that we're going to talk about is reducing the importance of the cognition itself. And so this is when somebody changes a core belief that they have so that they don't have to feel uncomfortable anymore about the disagreement between the attitude or the behavior. So for instance, if you believe that smoking is bad for you and therefore you shouldn't do it, and yet you continue to smoke, you might then say to yourself, you know what? Carpe diem, live for today. YOLO, right? And so it's this idea that you change another belief you have that essentially kind of through the dominoes or ricochets allows for you to no longer feel bad about this other decision that you have decided that doesn't maybe match with your attitudes. All right, cool. So that's how we cope with cognitive dissonance. So now that we've talked about cognitive dissonance a good bit, let's tuck that away. You'll definitely want that for understanding Slaughterhouse 5 because poor Billy Pilgrim and also our pseudo-narrator Vonnegut, and also probably Vonnegut himself, experiences a good bit of cognitive dissonance, and we'll look at that as we read and consider the greater impact on the book. But I also want us to talk about cognitive biases, and we're going to do that in our next video. So move to the next slide, play the video, and let's talk about cognitive biases.